Okay, this episode is about making a nice safe fireplace when you're camping. And no matter where you are, you want to have a safe fireplace. And a lot of places, especially boondock camping, like I'm out in the desert right now, you got to make your own fireplace, you know, with rocks, whatever. Make a fire ring so that you know, no chance of a fire spreading. That's an eagle I just bought down in Mexico. Nice American eagle, made out of iron, sheet iron, three-dimensional. I'm here in Southern California near Los Algonos, Mexico, where I go down to get dental work done, and it's really cheap. A lot of people did videos on YouTube, so I didn't do one on Algodones, cheap dental, but I only got charged $3.75 for a crown. Fillings were only $50. Root canals around $2.50. Those are the kind of prices. You could even get better. Sometimes the dentists down there advertise in the U.S. paper, especially like around Quartzsite, Arizona. And you can go down and get a crown for even $150. But anyway, I was out hiking out here in the desert. It's mid-May, and I found a pile of old cinder blocks that somebody piled up years ago. I mean, like 20-30 years ago. And so I decided to make a really nice big fireplace out of it. And you know, all cinder block, and then I poured mud and sand around the base. That's the back of the fireplace. But you could just do a simple, you know, my first one was just simple rocks, you know, make a fire ring or what have you, to prevent, you know, fire from spreading. And so there's my fireplace. Just started up a little while ago, and I'm finding just like discarded firewood. I drive around, and you know, where campers were in the past, and they leave their firewood, and I haven't had to buy any firewood since I've been here, because it's May, it's going up to 100. I've been recording temperatures 116 in the sun, 100 in the shade in May here, in the southeast corner of California, just west of Yuma. And it's all BLM lands out here, so it's free camping. You can camp for 2 weeks for free. And so I thought I'd do an episode on my fireplace, and I just poured a little more mud and sand in the front there, so embers can't go out. And you always should pour plenty of water over your campfire after you're finished for the night, because it might not be windy when you go to bed. You know, you're not watching the fire anymore, but the wind could kick up, and it's the big embers that get pulled out of the fireplace that start your ground fires. Not that you really have to worry too much out in the desert like this, but most forest areas and stuff, you want to pour a lot of water over it. Make sure those big embers don't get you know, thrown out during the night. And I even made a fireplace poker today out of rebar, 3-foot section of rebar, and I put on the very end a brass finial handle, which I took off of a 1830s, an antique 1830s fire poker, because it was just too short. You get a big fire going like this, you want something like real long, like a 3-footer. So I made that today, put that together. And I don't really want to say much more other than just be safe when you're making fires out in the wilderness. I always turn on my lantern. I always set up a lantern about 30 feet behind my fireplace so I can see animals coming in at night. Out here, it's primarily the fox, the desert fox. And they're very small in the desert. They just don't have much food. And I just like to know what animals are around in the middle of the night. You know, it's out in the middle of nowhere here. There's no lights or anything. So I always turn on my lantern. And Coleman came up with a really cool lantern. I've been camping my whole life, 60 years now. I'm an old timer, I guess. But anyway, recently they came up with a dual fuel. They call it a dual fuel lantern, and double mantle. And what that means is instead of just having to buy expensive white fuel or Coleman fuel, and I've seen it go from $4 up to $8 depending on where you are in the country. The dual fuel lantern, you can put gasoline in it. It's very safe. Coleman started making lanterns, I think in 1910, 1920. So they've been making them for 100 years. Anyway, all I use is gasoline. And the nice thing is, you always have gasoline. You can run out of Coleman fuel, and gasoline is much cheaper. I mean, it was $2.50 a gallon just a month or two ago. So I always run it on gasoline. And the dual fuel will cost you, I think it cost me about $100 for this lantern versus just a regular type, but it's worth it in my opinion. And the Coleman lanterns, I have one that I've been using for 30 years, and the only thing you ever really have to replace on them, other than the mantles, they burn out eventually, are the pumps. And they're real easy to take the pump out and put a new one in. It's like 10 bucks. So I've got one that's I've been using for 30 years, another one that runs on the white fuel. The other thing is they're just super bright. You're not going to get anything brighter than a Coleman lantern. A double mantle Coleman lantern will illuminate for 50 feet in every direction out here. So like I say, I turn them on just so I can see animals coming in. Especially the fox, they'll come in 10 feet away from you, and if you're in the dark, you can get really startled. You don't have to worry about them, but they're curious, and they'll come in looking for food and stuff. And I know a lot of people say don't feed the animals and stuff, but I put out water for two reasons. Basin way over here. During the day, the bees drink out of this. I put rocks in there so the bees don't drown. And everything needs water, to stay alive. The insects, the mammals, everything. And then at night, the fox come in, they drink out of that. So I always keep that full. So anyway, just my short episode of the fireplace I built. You could build a really good sized bonfire in this baby. It's like 3 blocks high. And it's built to be very safe. But I don't expect most of you to go to this extreme, but as long as you build up your rocks, I would build them up at least 2 feet high in the back, put a row in the front. In this case though, I went probably at least 3 feet high. So okay, that's about it. This episode in the desert of Southern California. This is Eagle Eric signing off.